You talked about multi-site just now. And I mentioned to you when we were together, we've followed the multi-site movement and all that we've watched across the country.
Right.
Been really curious about that probably for the
Right.
last 10 years. This isn't new. And then the last couple of years, really coming out of the pandemic, we found ourselves as a multi-site church, sort of in that church rescue space. And
Right.
I know
Right.
that's something that's close to you and something that you're focused on. So the way we're structured, we've found ourselves in the last year adding a second site and now adding a third site. And so my question is maybe a big one, but it's kind of like, now what do we do? We were one site and we were trying to figure that out. And,
Right.
and we woke up one day and we were responsible for a couple other sites that are
Right.
absolutely in a church rescue situation. So as you think about that, what are some of the first steps to get you going in the right direction?
As it pertains to just multi-site itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and adding
Yeah.
locations and
Yeah. One, I think you need to really think about like, okay, do we want to be a live model? Do we want to be a video venue? I think you have to think about that. I think you have to think about when you are ready to launch another campus. Sometimes people do it a little prematurely. I think you have to think about your systems. Are they duplicatable? Okay, so this is how we do greeting at our church. Okay, but is that how they're going to do it at the other campus? And how do we know that? This is how we do children's ministry. Okay, are they going to do that at the other campus? And how do we know that? How does it pass the duplicatable system? And so I think that's another thing to think about. Are we duplicatable enough? Do we have the resources? Do we have the leadership? So first, you got to decide what you want it to be. I think, what do we want our model to be? We want it to be, video venue. We want it to be live speaking. We want it to be this. Okay. If that's what we're going to do, what is the playbook? What's the systems that have to be in place in order to make that happen? So you get the idea, and then you got to create the systems. It's like you and I are going to open a restaurant. That's great. That's a dream. We're going to do this. That's a dream. Okay, but now what? Well, this is how the structure is going to be. This is how we're going to cook the food. This is how we're going to hire people. This is how we're going to get customers. This is how we're going to follow up on whatever it is. So it's how we're going to pay people. This is the HR we're going to use. All the systems start going into place so that you can guard and protect your culture. If you don't do that, you'll never be able to guard and protect your culture.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I would think about that. What do we want to be? Then guard the culture. Make sure you have the systems that are in place. Make sure it's duplicatable. Make sure it's all that, and then start going down from there. And then you're looking at, like you and I talked about, traffic lights. Like, do we have traffic light number 1? Do we have the resources for it financially? Traffic light number 2. Do we have the leadership in place? Traffic light number 3, is this a right move for us? Is this a location? Can we minister in this area, or would someone else actually be better ministering in that area because of our style? So you're asking like 7 or 8, 9, 10 traffic light questions that are like, man, if most of these aren't green, we should probably not move forward.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say to me if at this point, in our case, I'm feeling like we ran some red lights? And so
I do it every day.
Here we are. So there's a sense that for me and my team, we're playing some catch up. We're committed. I think our heart's in the right place, and we're just trying to just get caught up. Is there places where you would say you absolutely, this is before you get any farther? Here's 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you've got to be conscious of and you've got to get settled. Inside
the multi-site before you even move forward?
Yeah.
Right.
As we are looking at the multi-sites that we already have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving forward with the multi-site, you have leadership is king. It's having the right people in the right seats. That's king. I mean, if you put 25 multi-site pastors in a room and say, what is the thing that you need? Who's the leader? Because if you don't have a great leader there, it'll struggle. If you don't have a great leader there, you're going to have, I don't say I was going to grow. I mean, God can do whatever he wants, but there's it's a pretty good chance it ain't going to happen. Yeah. You got to have the leader in the right place. I would look at those things. Do we have the right leader, the right team? Do we have the resources to back it? And do we have, like I said, do we have Do they understand what we're trying to duplicate? Is there a clear pathway?
Okay.
If there's not a clear pathway, then you're going to be a McDonald's and they're going to be a 7-Eleven, and you can be like, this ain't even the same church.
Right.
So we're not multi-site. We're just sending some people over and they're creating whatever they want.
Yeah.
Multi-site is that you're
really
reproducing what you are, and you're going to end up having a completely different situation over there if you don't have, man, we got the right leader in place and we know exactly how we do church. This is how we do it. This is the way we do a church.
Okay.
So important. Really
I've heard
important.
You love that. I mean, that is so good. And it makes me think, the times I've heard you talk about this now, you're not thinking about people trying to support that new location from like a central location. You're usually talking about reproducing that with live bodies and leaders in the room, so to speak, right?
Yeah. You're talking about like, was I speaking of like taking people from your main campus and moving them over? Is that what you're asking? I want to make sure I understand.
You can't do it remotely. So you're talking about a leader. When you're talking about leadership as king, you're talking about leaders there in the room, leaders focused on that location, not
100%.
Not trying to send that from another location.
I think you can do that in the interim, where it's like, hey, this church was dying and there's this building is going to be empty and they got 12 people left or 15 people left, and we're going to send leaders in until we figure out what to do. Right. Yeah, I think you can send a guy over on Sundays and just kind of until you figure out what to do. But the end, absolutely. There's got to be a team that's committed to that. It's like, that's our campus. That's where we go. That's where we build. We're all in.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yep. They got to be all in for that community. They got to be all in believing that God's called them to that. And it might be, and it's okay on some situations where it's like someone might say to you, maybe you got a lot of good players in place and one of them's like, look, I'll give you a year. And that's okay. As long as they're all in, that's okay. Yeah. That happens. That's not perfect, but you got to have people that, this is what they want to build. This is what they feel called to do. They're not sort of, studio musicians that sort of show up, play, and then leave, and now take that and move that to the campus pastor, to the live speaker, or whatever you got. It's like they're all studio musicians. Like there's no commitment there.
Yeah.
They're not making the album. They're not thinking about all the different, they just go in, do their thing and leave. Yeah. And, maybe you can have one on your team that does that, but if you have the whole team doing that, I think you're going to have a struggle.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm really hearing that. And